In 2020, we recognized the incredible leadership at an insurance startup that just debuted on the NASDAQ, a Columbus engineering firm involved in the city's top projects, a trend-setting real estate developer, a long-standing nonprofit dedicated to empowering women and eliminating racism, and an organization giving women the tools they need to move up the economic mobility ladder. This is Columbus CEO's CEO of the Year 2020. We thank our sponsors, Mills James and Regionomics. Enjoy the show.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to the 2020 Virtual CEO of the Year Awards. I'm Ray Paprocki, publisher of Dispatch Magazines, which of course includes Columbus CEO. Thank you for joining us. We have a number of leaders to honor tonight, and it's interesting to read about their different paths to their leadership roles and how once they've arrived in their positions, realized that they still needed to get better, that the ability to reflect, listen, and learn led them to change, to adapt concepts that we're all too familiar with this year, and ultimately to continue to improve. So we are here to celebrate their achievements, their evolution of leadership, and the impacts they've had in our community. Before we begin, a few additional words of thanks. First, I'd like to acknowledge the Columbus CEO staff who worked hard producing the CEO of the Year package and gathering. We are pleased to have the virtual production talent of Mills James, a sponsor this evening, to create this engaging program. You'll be meeting a representative of Mills James later. And finally, thank you to Regionomics as our partner in the 2020 Central Ohio CEO Survey, the aim of which is to provide a portrait of where the local business climate stands as we head into a hard-to-predict 2021. Together, we surveyed more than 4,000 organizational leaders to take the pulse of the Central Ohio business community. For the survey, which was conducted this fall, C-level leaders were asked their opinions about the current economic outlook in Central Ohio in light of the pandemic and elections, as well as the perceptions of the area as a place to do business. An in-depth look at the survey results is available in the December issue of Columbus CEO. Now we have the opportunity to learn a little more about the findings with our CEO of the Year leadership panel. I now turn things over to Columbus-based economist, owner of Regionomics, and this evening's leadership panel moderator, Bill Lafayette, and our three panelists, all of whom are 2020 CEO of the Year finalists. From Big Brothers Big Sisters of Central Ohio, Elizabeth Martinez. From Moody Nolan, Jonathan Moody. And from the Columbus Urban League, Stephanie Hightower. Bill, the screen is yours.
Thank you very much, Ray. I'm absolutely thrilled to collaborate with you and Columbus CEO on your annual CEO survey for a second year. So let me start with a really quick summary of the results. I want to be brief to leave plenty of time for our panel. The effects of the pandemic loom large in the survey, of course. There have certainly been negative effects, but there have been positive effects too. Not surprisingly, the current economic climate is far and away the top challenge facing Central Ohio businesses. Last year, it made the list of only 9% of the respondents. 60% of the businesses in the survey have suffered negative revenue impacts. In some cases, revenues were up, but far less than expected as the year began. However, many reported at least some positive impacts. The biggest of these have been technological innovations. That's an important way that we've all adapted to the new environment, as we are adapting in this program. Interestingly, others reported having the opportunity to think more carefully about business strategy, establish or enhance an online presence, and innovate. These responses to a terrible situation are bound to have positive impacts that are going to continue long after the pandemic is behind us. There's still a lot of apprehension and uncertainty in the business community, though. 27% expect their revenues to decline over the next year, compared to only 13% who expected a decrease in revenues last year. Suggestions to improve the Central Ohio business climate are mostly the same as they were last year. Improve education, improve public transportation, and create more affordable housing. There are certainly factors that make Central Ohio an attractive business location with a good quality of life. These include our affordable cost of living, the collaborative culture, and the educated workforce, the family-friendly environment, the welcoming community, and the quality of local healthcare facilities. Now let me broaden the discussion by bringing in Elizabeth, Jonathan, and Stephanie. Welcome. This year has brought a focus on important efforts to address systemic racism in the community and in the corporate world. How can we assist these efforts in our business and our personal life? And how can we ensure that those efforts continue in the longer term? Stephanie, I'll start with you.
Sure, and thank you, Bill, for that question. Over the last 8 months, this has been a question that the Columbus Urban League has been asked about over and over again. Let me say that while there has been an awakening in this country due to the illumination of disparities for Black and Brown people because of COVID, but also because of the social justice movement now being heightened. It's now time for this country and even in this community for us to get comfortable with being uncomfortable. We have to ask ourselves the questions, who are we as a country? Who are we as a community? Because there has to be new policies, new rules, new laws changed if in fact, we really want to address the awakening that has been illuminated by the social justice issues, George Floyd's killing, Ahmaud Arbery, Breonna Taylor, as well as the disparities that have been illuminated by COVID.
So that you really see this in a way as an opportunity.
Absolutely. I have taken the position that never let a crisis go to waste. And so, I will say this, organizations like the Columbus Urban League, who our mission is very specific about social justice and civil rights and economic opportunity for Black and Brown people and marginalized people, has been in existence for over 102 years. Our organization really does represent the stains of systematic racism and slavery. And so I think we were not given the opportunity because people didn't want to have those uncomfortable conversations to really talk about them. And so the support of the Urban League has always been minimal. But now that this has been exacerbated and illuminated, our work is more important than it ever was before.
Jonathan, how about your thoughts?
Yeah, so for me, it's been an interesting journey because I don't think it's necessarily the things that are being said have changed per se, but we hear them a little bit differently now. And part of the hearing that is hearing all of the conversations. So, as Stephanie said so eloquently, it took a long time to build up to where we've gotten. And it is often very uncomfortable and difficult to hear for many, people who are, in these types of businesses or in the private sector, to hear that there's not an easy solution or that, hey, if we can just do these 3 things, we'll solve it. It's also going to take a long time and a lot of consistent, uncomfortable, uncertain effort over a long time to dismantle a system that's taken a long time to build. I hear it directly because, I've been taught, I specifically focused in and around, when you look at architecture, real estate, it's, a lot of the conversation that we're hearing and talking about right now is directly related to communities that we've been working in for years. And we've seen and noticed and witnessed the disparities but it wasn't evident until it's like, well, hey, if now we're dependent on everybody's public health, all of a sudden some of the disparities are, blatantly obvious that, hey, we have not invested in certain communities for a long time. Why not? And when we start to ask why, that's where it becomes uncomfortable and difficult to hear. Well, yeah, the why is not is not a, hey, this happened in the last couple years. It's happened over a long time. And also, it's not a, hey, if you just build a new school, it'll solve it. It's like, no, it's a lot more complicated than that.
So in your organization, how are you addressing the
Well,
challenge?
we have felt very fortunate. I've always felt blessed to, I stand on the shoulders of giants. That's how we were built. We started off, just looking for any opportunity we could get. And because, my father, one of the very few African-American architects, typically worked in African-American communities. So building a base of, working with groups like churches and libraries and schools and the urban leagues and the YMCAs, it's kind of, well, we've seen these challenges a lot. So for a big part of our work is not just to say, hey, let's, let's continue down the path, but it's more about a refocused effort on saying, hey, a lot of those projects that are in those communities, like if you say specifically affordable housing, hey, we see this is not just like kind of important, this is very important. And we have to continue to think about and approach it with, very specific intentional sensitivities to the broader context now that we're a little bit more open and awake to it. The other thing too is acknowledging that some of these cultural issues are deeper. So, we've had, again, ongoing, we don't have an end in sight. You kind of every other Friday, we have planned opportunities for discussion where we can all hear and learn and understand, because one of the things that we've seen and witnessed is as much as we assume everybody's knowledgeable about some of these challenges and issues, it's an acknowledgement. Hey, that is also a position of privilege. Say, like, I think one of the questions that came up in February was like, I didn't know there was a Black national anthem. And I'm like, in our organization, I'm like, well, how could you not know that? But it's the reality that, hey, people are ready and open and willing now to learn. So we have to offer platforms and forums. And again, not a, hey, we'll do this one time and it's over. We'll do one training and it's over, but an ongoing forum for quite a while. We don't know when. We'll just keep learning from one another the best we can.
Excellent. How about you, Elizabeth?
Yeah, well, I agree with the statement earlier about this being an opportunity, but I think before we think about dismantling anything, we have to acknowledge that it exists as a statement of fact. And I think for many people in our community, that has been a reality. Acknowledging that we can no longer avoid the conversation, that's very healthy discourse happening in our community. But I think it's also true to recognize that there are individuals in our community and in our society that don't acknowledge that it exists. And so I think that we shouldn't rest in the belief that the sense of urgency for change is something that has been embraced as a collective community, but that we all play a very important role in making sure that the work of dismantling racism is a priority moving forward. That ownership of the forward movement is important because there are both micro and macro ways that we can all help impact it. And I think at the root, it starts with the individual. So whether that, recognizing where's my position of most influence, and let's start there. So at the conversation at the dinner table with the children, within the family structures, being able to educate ourselves on systemic racism, being comfortable with challenging, the conversations within the family dynamics that show up that don't help advance the discussion. I think at the macro levels, within organizations, within corporations, within our community, is putting on our detective hat, if you will, and saying, if we go mining for inequities, we're going to find them because they exist. and being comfortable, as it's been said, with the uncomfortable, to say that's part of the discovery process that we need to lean in and engage in. And it is uncomfortable. And I think that that's okay for it to be uncomfortable. But as we examine those systems, those policies, those procedures, we have to ask, are they advancing the equity agenda for our community in ways that we want to see our community progress? Are they holding us back? And if they are, what are we going to do differently as a result of that?
Jonathan, you had a point.
Yeah, I think one of the things that my wife and I have been struggling with the last 6 months is, as you mentioned, those personal, like individual conversations, and like even as say like a parent, right? Like how do you engage? How do you participate? And one of the things that I literally saw yesterday, a point that was made that was like, I hadn't thought of it that way. Because sometimes it comes up like, what if this never touches me? What if this isn't aware? And even if that is kind of a position that you'd accept, but the idea that like, what, my child would probably never, in all likelihood, encounter a kidnapper, right? But we all knew growing up, don't talk to strangers. There were things that just were ingrained because it was just a focus that this needs to be taught and ingrained to you early, that it exists and it's real, and better to be prepared in the event that it could happen than to pretend like it doesn't exist. And that was that's a way that even me as a parent, I can begin to think about how to engage in that how does that impact even my individual family and kids?
Thank you. One of the things that I was really struck by in the survey was, I talked about this a few minutes ago, the finding that so many business leaders used the slowdown in the spring to think about broader priorities and strategies for the future. So what changes have you had to make in your organization this year? And which of these do you think are going to continue after the pandemic? Elizabeth, I'll start with you.
Yeah, I'll respond to that. Probably, three specific areas that our organization has been focused on. The first is there's been a lot of dialogue in our community about normal and getting back to normal. And as an organization, I think we've been really curious about the new normal for our organization. Pre-pandemic, we've spent a lot of time really thinking about how do we continue to leverage mentoring as a strategy to help support kids in our community, but how do we also build the appropriate ecosystems of support to really move from, serving to solving some very complex issues for children in our community. We know that there's more work to do in that space, but certainly have been taking advantage of the collaboration opportunities that have manifested during this time. I think secondly, is really being thoughtful about our model of Big Brothers Big Sisters mentoring is consistently in the space of building bridges across difference. And there's a great deal of responsibility that comes with that charge of bringing match relationships together. So we've been dialing into strengthening our training, being comfortable with that discourse around systemic racism and bias and how that could potentially show up in match relationships as a point of not only just educating the adults that are interacting with children in our program, but really being thoughtful about what's our collective role of advancing equity in all spaces for kids, their families in our community. And then the last one is, as most organizations have had to stay on their tiptoes and pivot as a result of the pandemic, we've been thoughtful about taking advantage of the technology opportunities for us to have greater access to some of the work that the organization is afforded through, whether it's our camp program in the Hocking Hills, having to expand some of our virtual services in that space. The mentoring capacity building arm within our organization has now extended to support other mentoring organizations throughout the state of Ohio who've demonstrated greater need during the pandemic, as well as we're the parent organization to 3 other Big Brothers Big Sister affiliates throughout the state of Ohio, and we've been able to collaborate more shared service opportunities with those organizations. So technology, automation of services, processes has really been helpful to us, and we want to continue to do that moving forward.
Excellent. Stephanie?
You know, when we were talking earlier, the Urban League, we considered ourselves an economic first responder for the community. And so we went from, COVID pandemic to the social justice pandemic, just back to back. And so we had to build the plane while it was flying, looking at how we were going to reinvent our business. But one of the things that we did walk away through this process or over the last 8 months is that we said we were going to focus on the 3 R's. And those 3 R's are recovery, or that emergency relief, which we've been intimately engaged in. Then we know we have to look at reform, what is, the systematic irreversible change that's going to be needed as we continue to address the issue of racial and social inequities and economic inequities. And then what was really important is a resiliency, so that families and businesses can not only survive, but that they can thrive long-term. And so our business model right now is really focused on still in the emergency relief phase, but as we're looking at all of the barriers that we are finding in policies and procedures, as this federal money comes down and these stimulus packages come down, we now know that we've got to look at what are some of those systematic changes that needs to be happening. So we're now making an advocacy agenda that's going on at the same time, and making sure we're parking that information there so we know what we need to do long term, and then what are going to be the resiliency efforts. So do we partner with someone like Elizabeth to figure out how do we get kids jobs? And by the way, we do have a program that I want to talk to you about when we get finished, where we have 16, 18-year-olds can get into a job program. And those are some of your kids, and they would need that mentorship. But we know that kids want to stay engaged during this time. And so how do we keep them engaged besides just being online all day long? But then how do we find other opportunities for them to keep them engaged? So we're focused on the 3 R's, Bill. That's where our focus is right now.
Very cool. Jonathan?
Yeah, some of the things that we've learned, and it's like we knew them, but we heard them differently. We've been talking forever about flexibility within space, and how, yes, like if you take just say education, like, well, there's so many different learning styles, so many different backgrounds, and so many different opportunities that you have to have design and think about that space so that it can change or adapt over time. I don't think anybody realized that, well, that could mean that you might have to, within a matter of days or weeks, completely rethink your educational model. But we had to be prepared, and we talked about flexibility within space forever, but you hear it differently now. The other things too is the kind of breaking down of the idea of a hero and like a singular person that solves everybody's problems. It's like, gosh, we need everybody more than ever. We all have such diverse, unique, helpful perspectives to offer. And what we've seen in this Zoom teamy world is that, hey, if you can get everybody into the meeting, and even if they only need to hear 5 minutes and offer their 30 seconds of expertise, that makes everything better. So I think one of the things that we know is going to continue, it has to, is the flexibility of, even as we meet and as we put teams together to do the work, we need to offer the opportunity to say, hey, you don't just have to be in the room. Maybe you're just on video or on the phone or just somehow tapped in. But the more we can leverage resources really from across the world through the internet to make whatever work we're doing better, I mean, we know that there's a better outcome that can be achieved from that.
So in the last few minutes that we have, I'd really like us to share really quickly our greatest hope, our greatest dream for 2021? Elizabeth, you want to go first?
Just one is going to be incredibly hard here. But what I will say is I think that this 2020 has been a challenging year for organizations like mine, many organizations who are doing incredible work to be responsive to the needs of our community. And my hope is that we will continue to find the resources that we need so that we can provide the support that we know not only kids are going to need in our community, but that really this entire community needs to continue to lean in so that we can come out of this better than where we are right now.
Stephanie?
Yeah, my greatest hope, as we talked about earlier, now that there's been the awakening, how do we put awareness into action? And we crack the code for a pathway to economic inclusivity. That's my hope.
Jonathan?
Yeah, my hope is very selfish, but I hope that you can read into it what it means for everyone else. I can't help but think about what Madam Vice President Kamala Harris means for the world. And my daughter just turned 5, and what I see in her, I hope so badly that my daughter is able to begin her journey to start school next fall, because all of what that would mean.
Oh, wonderful. And I'll take the moderator's prerogative of answering my own question. My greatest hope for next year is that it brings us a greater understanding of the needs of the less fortunate in our community who are really suffering right now. I'm hoping that our city, our state, our nation focuses on them and their needs, and that we can lift all of us up. So thank you all for a truly fascinating discussion. And I just wish we had a whole lot more time. So with that, I will turn it back to you, Ray. Thank you all very much.
Thank you, Bill, and a special thanks to our 3 panelists on their insights. Now, transitioning into the awards presentation, I'd like to welcome the editor of Columbus CEO, Katie Smith.
Thank you, Ray. I'm happy to be here. All the winners and finalists you're about to meet are visionaries in their respective fields. They all give back to the communities that have given so much to them. But most of all, each one of our honorees leads by example, and they display, day after day, what it takes to make their company or organization great. For this year's awards, area CEOs, presidents, executive directors, managing partners, and other C-suite executives voted for CEOs of the Year in 4 categories: large and small business and large and small nonprofit. The ballots were populated by suggestions from local chambers of commerce and other business organizations. From there, the 11 finalists and 5 winners, we have a tie this year, were selected by respondents of the survey of local CEOs that Ray just told you about. The stories that we work to tell in the December issue of Columbus CEO speak to one of our editorial missions, which is to recognize pillars of leadership in our business community. This group represents the best that Central Ohio has to offer. I thank all of you for setting the bar so high. Now let's meet our CEOs of the Year. To introduce our first category of awards, please welcome President of Mills James, Arthur James.
Thank you, Katie. Our first category is for CEO of the Year of a small Central Ohio nonprofit organization. Here are our 3 finalists. Michael Corey of Human Services Chamber of Franklin County. Corey is the Executive Director of the Human Services Chamber of Franklin County. Since arriving at HSC in 2017, membership has grown from 48 to 102 nonprofits. The Chamber strives to provide one voice on behalf of over 14,000 employees and hundreds of thousands of people served in our community. Corey holds a Bachelor of Arts from Duke University, a master's in education policy from The Ohio State University, and a law degree from Ohio State's Moritz College of Law. After practicing healthcare law at Bricker and Eckler for 3 years, Corey worked as a policy analyst at the Children's Defense Fund Ohio and as a regional voter protection director for the Clinton campaign. Congratulations, Michael. Oyama Garrison with A Kid Again. Garrison serves as the president and CEO for A Kid Again, a nonprofit organization that provides ongoing adventures for kids facing life-threatening conditions. Garrison is a former insurance company executive of over 20 years. He worked at State Farm, Nationwide, Allstate, and Jacobson, and serves as a director on the board of Buckeye Insurance. Garrison has been recognized for his civic contributions by the Ohio General Assembly and the Columbus City Council. He also is the recipient of an honorary doctorate degree from Franklin University and the United States of America Presidential 2014 Gold Standard Award. Garrison holds a bachelor's degree from Denison University and an MBA from Franklin University. Congratulations, Oyama. Elizabeth Martinez of Big Brothers Big Sisters of Central Ohio. As CEO of Big Brothers Big Sisters of Central Ohio since 2016, Martinez is dedicated to building relationships that bring people and communities closer together. The core work of Big Brothers Big Sisters is centered around one-to-one mentorship programs. The agency offers leadership development programs at its camp in the Hocking Hills, and it builds capacity for other mentoring organizations through Mentor Central Ohio. Martinez serves on the board of directors for Franklin County Children's Services and the Human Service Chamber. She is a registered corporate coach with the Worldwide Association of Business Coaches. Congratulations, Elizabeth. And the CEO of the Year winner in the small nonprofit category, which is for organizations with less than $4 million in annual revenue, is Angel Harris of Dress for Success. In the 17 years that Angel Harris was at the United Way of Central Ohio, she had the opportunity to work with and observe scores of other local nonprofits and learn a lot of lessons, including the importance of creating great programming for clients and collaborating with other local nonprofits. And so when Angel was named Executive Director of Dress for Success in 2018, she put all these valuable lessons to work for her women. Angel says, quote, "We empower women to achieve economic independence by providing a network of support," end quote. And to accomplish this vital goal, she and her team offer a lot more than the clothes they need for interviews. This is just a starting point. Dress for Success also has a career center, employment retention services, and peer support groups. They partner with more than 130 local nonprofits, including Perscolas to teach women tech coding, with Alvis to help incarcerated women re-enter society, and they are creating new programs with Ohio Means Jobs and the Franklin County Department of Job and Family Services. For all she does for the underserved women of Central Ohio, please help me congratulate Angel Harris.
Thank you, Central Ohio. Thank you, Katie Smith and Columbus CEO Magazine for this distinction. I am honored to express gratitude on behalf of the generations that have come before me. When I accepted the role leading Dress for Success Columbus, I spoke to 500 of our advocates and friends, telling them that I am my grandmother's wildest dream. I come from generations of courageous, curious, and compassionate systems thinkers. Because of them, I am a driver for systems change, a believer in collective impact, and spent my nonprofit career engaging, shaping, and mobilizing systems to create more access and equity. After raising more than $500 million over my career with United Way, and then growing revenue at Dress for Success by 50% in 2 years, my cup is full because of what we have been able to accomplish together. In my role at Dress, I have been fortunate to open up greater opportunities for thousands of women while building relationships one-on-one to see our ladies' needs up close and to understand how our innovation is enhancing their lives and the lives of their families. None of us live on an island. I see our world as an interconnected open system, and each of us are greatly dependent on others. None of us walk alone. None of us achieve success without the support of others. And we have been shown that we have a lot of work to do, individually and as a country. This work requires all of us to pick up new tools, and though they might be heavy, they are essential to craft a new environment that we all can be proud of. As we move forward to normal, it is time to ensure that achieving your dreams does not depend on your zip code. A new dawn is on the horizon, and I have deep optimism for what we will become.
Congratulations, Angel. And on to our next CEO of the Year category, the large nonprofits. We have 3 finalists. First, I'd like to congratulate Stephanie Hightower of the Columbus Urban League. Hightower, the first female president of the Columbus Urban League, is a tireless advocate for social justice and racial equity. Under her leadership, the League touches nearly 40,000 people a year with economic mobility initiatives, and it transformed an abandoned building into an economic hub in the King Lincoln District. During the pandemic, Hightower, who is a world-class athlete and a former Columbus School Board member, has connected with 4,000 jeopardized Black businesses and 9,000 families fighting homelessness. She's also stood tall for reforms in policing, eviction policy, and benefits for those financially damaged by COVID-19. Congratulations, Stephanie. Lou Von Thaer of Battelle. Von Thaer was appointed president and CEO of Battelle, the world's largest independent research and development organization, in October 2017. Formed in 1925 as a charitable trust and headquartered in Columbus, Battelle delivers technology solutions for the national security, healthcare, energy, and environmental markets. Von Thaer serves as board chair of Pacific Northwest National Laboratory, co-chair of UT Battelle, the operator of Oak Ridge National Laboratory, and on the boards of the Defense Science Board, the National Defense Industrial Association, Nationwide Children's Hospital, and Tragedy Assistance Program for Survivors, and he is a member of the Ohio State University Board of Trustees. Congratulations, Lou. Dr. Stephen Markovich of Ohio Health. Dr. Markovich is a healthcare executive, physician, and military leader. He has practiced as a family medicine and emergency room physician and was president of Ohio Health Riverside Methodist Hospital before becoming Ohio Health's CEO in 2019. Markovich retired as a major general after 38 years of military service, most recently serving as the commander of the Ohio Air National Guard. He is a member of the boards of the National Veterans Memorial and Museum and the Columbus Symphony, and has been active in the past with Jobs Ohio, the United Way of Central Ohio, and the Simon Kenton Council of the Boy Scouts of America. Congratulations, Dr. Markovich. And now the 2020 CEO of the Year winner in the large nonprofit category, which is for organizations with at least $4 million in annual revenue, is Christy Angel. Since 2017, Angel has led the YWCA Columbus, one of the city's most long-standing nonprofits. An organization of firsts, the YWCA desegregated its dining hall and pools before many other local organizations, breaking down racial barriers in the community. Today, Angel leads continued efforts to support and uplift homeless women, offer quality childcare for children, prioritize racial equality as a key to poverty reduction, and fight for social equity. Through her work with the Activists and Agitators virtual event, which this year had over 1,000 attendees from broad backgrounds, the YWCA encourages and supports dialogue and action towards systemic social change. She has served the YWCA for over 20 years, holding roles from volunteer to board chair. She calls the YWCA her one constant over the last 2 decades and considers the CEO role her dream job. Please join me in congratulating Christy Angel.
Thank you, Columbus CEO, for this honor. I am humbled. This is special because the selection comes from my peers, all of whom deserve to be honored with me today. 2020 has been a year of uncertainties, from the pandemic to rampant racial injustices to a social justice movement in a divisive election. As leaders, we have all had to make difficult and brave decisions while keeping people safe, operating our businesses, and fulfilling our missions. I personally have been inspired and encouraged by our ability to come together during this difficult time and serve our community. Thank you to all the nonprofit leaders of this community for your strength, wisdom, and partnership. Most importantly, I would not be in a position to be nominated for this honor, much less accepted, if it were not for Team YWCA Columbus and our board of directors. They inspire me every day as they come to work ready to serve, look out for one another, and fight for what matters most in this community: our residents, families, young people, and those standing in the margins. They lead with dignity and respect for others regardless of where they've been or where they're going. It is because of Team YWCA Columbus that I am able to accept this honor, and I share it with them. Thank you.
Congratulations, Christy, and thank you, Arthur. I'm happy to announce the awards recognizing the finalists and winners of CEO of the Year for Small For-Profit Central Ohio Business. The finalists are Jonathan Moody, Moody Nolan. The CEO of Moody Nolan Architecture Firm leads a company that has grown to over 230 employees and 11 offices across the nation since it was founded by his father, Kurt Moody. The firm's designs have won over 300 design citations, including 46 from the American Institute of Architects. Jonathan has worked on a variety of civic, sports, education, healthcare, and institutional projects, focusing on helping communities in need. He holds a Bachelor's of Architecture from Cornell University and a Master's in Architecture from UCLA. Congratulations, Jonathan. Mark Daniels, M+A Architects. The president of M+A Architects has worked with the firm for more than 33 years and has served as president for the past 20. Daniels leads the company's mission to design for the future, and his specialties include mixed-use and multi-use projects, multifamily housing, urban infill and downtown development, walkable neighborhoods, and responsible planning. Congratulations, Mark. And now the winners. We have a tie for CEO of the Year in the small business category, which is for companies with 500 or fewer employees. Brett Kaufman. Brett Kaufman founded Kaufman Development in 2011, and the company has created several cutting-edge, unique, modern, and perhaps even iconic buildings in less than a decade. The project that best exemplifies Kaufman's philosophy for development and life is the aptly named Gravity Multi-Use Project in Franklinton. As Sir Isaac Newton discovered, the laws of gravity say all things made of mass or energy are brought toward one another. Kaufman's goal for his developments is to bring people together, connecting them with one another and the communities in which they live. He's teamed with BESA to create volunteer opportunities for his tenants. He's incorporated space for meditation and yoga, community gardens, and he has made the issue of mental health something people are talking about. And he's just getting started. There are several new and innovative development projects in the works, and he is starting his own venture capital fund to help others find their passion and path. Congratulations, Brett Kaufman.
Thank you. Thank you to CEO Magazine and to Ray and Katie for all the work that you're doing at the magazine and for this incredible honor. I'd like to thank my wife and my family for their love and support. Without them, none of this is possible. I'd like to thank my team at Kaufman Development and at Gravity, Frank Sasso and the leadership team and everybody at Kaufman who has worked so tirelessly day in and day out, that does the heavy lifting every day. I get to do this little piece called CEO that is the thing that I love to do, that drives the most value to the company, that's my unique ability, but it's the rest of the team that's really doing the hard work and is really deserving of this award. There's so many people that are deserving that we get to collaborate with every day at Gravity: Doug Ullman, at Pelotonia, Kenny Sipes, Tanisha Robinson, Matthew Goldstein, Claire Coder, and there's so many others that have been nominated, my friends Ilya Bodner and so many others that really truly deserve this recognition. I'd like to think that if the speech I gave at the Chamber of Commerce and the work that we're doing with the Gravity podcast, where we're telling stories, full life stories, people's journeys, where they share vulnerably their traumas, their challenges, and their full journey with the rest of the community. If that work had anything to do with this recognition, then for that I am deeply, deeply honored and full of gratitude. Thank you very much.
Our second CEO of the Year winner in the small business category is Sandy Doyle Ahern. President of New Albany-based engineering planning and surveying firm, EMH&T, Sandy Doyle Ahern is a proactive leader and award-winning champion of affordable housing. She was recently honored with Homeport's 2020 Voice and Vision Award, having started with EMH&T in 1997 and skillfully working her way up. Doyle Ahern became the first woman to helm the company in 2012. Her colleagues point not only to her talents and intelligence, but also to her genuine interest and care in uplifting others. A longtime Central Ohio resident, Doyle Ahern also serves as board chair of the YWCA Columbus and is a member of the Columbus Partnership. She also helped craft the Franklin County Blueprint for Reducing Poverty, and her firm is a financial supporter of the Affordable Housing Alliance of Central Ohio. She holds a master's degree in environmental science from Miami of Ohio. Please join me in congratulating Sandy Doyle Ahern.
Living the day-to-day of 2020, I often wonder how it will be described in the history lessons of the next century. I hope history will be kind to us. I would describe my year as one of living hour by hour, day by day, making decisions, shifting and pivoting the next day with new information, doing the best I can to lead with facts and focusing on the future. I have seen so many of my fellow CEOs this year doing the exact same thing. We have all been on this crazy ride together, and I'm grateful to every one of you who took my call and served as a sounding board late at night and on weekends to think through our situations. To the CEO community in Columbus, you truly honor me with this recognition, and I thank every one of you for being there for me this year as a friend, a mentor, and even providing moments of much-needed laughter. This recognition is deserved by every organizational leader this year who has faced the same uncertainty and done the best they can to keep things going. I share this with all of you, and I wish you a steady hand, an open heart, and hope for the future. Thank you.
And now I'm pleased to announce our final awards, and that's for CEO of the Year in the large for-profit category. The finalists for this award are Bill Henniger, Rogue Fitness. Bill Henniger launched fitness equipment maker Rogue in 2006 while employed at General Motors and working on his MBA. Today, Rogue reports it is the largest strength and conditioning equipment manufacturer in the world, processing 500,000 pounds of steel every day. The company built a 45-acre campus in Milo Grogan and has grown to 1,200 employees. Congratulations, Bill. And our next finalist in the large for-profit category is Dr. Bill Wolf, Central Ohio Primary Care. Dr. Bill Wolf has been the Chief Executive Officer of COPC since 2013. A steadfast advocate for independent primary care physicians, he was a leader among the founding physicians that helped establish the organization in 1996. During the pandemic, COPC implemented telehealth across over 70 practices and 350 physicians in less than 1 week. Way to go, Dr. Wolf. And our third finalist in the large for-profit category is Mike Kaufman at Cardinal Health. Kaufman is CEO of Cardinal Health, a global healthcare company based in Dublin with 50,000 employees. The medical supplier serves nearly 90% of US hospitals and is among the top 25 companies on the Fortune 500. Kaufman has held a range of executive leadership positions with Cardinal across operations, sourcing, sales, and finance over 30 years. He is a passionate advocate for diversity, equity, and inclusion. Congratulations, Mike. And the CEO of the Year winner in the large business category for 2020 is Alex Tim, Root Insurance. Alex Tim helms one of the most exciting Columbus region companies in the past few years, Root Insurance. The auto insurance startup was founded in 2015 and went public on the NASDAQ in October with the sale of 26.8 million shares at $27 each. With a company valuation of $7 billion, it was the largest IPO in Ohio history. Root distinguishes itself in the marketplace by using smartphone technology to track potential customers' driving habits. With that and artificial intelligence, it can price insurance policies based on actual driving behavior and data. With Columbus-based Drive Capital as a major investor, Root already has grown to 1,100 employees, and it's on track to double that in a year's time. The company was in the top 20 of CNBC's Disruptor 50 companies for 2020. Tim is a graduate of Drake University with degrees in actuarial science, accounting, and mathematics. He was honored with the 2020 EY Entrepreneur of the Year Award. Please join me in congratulating Alex Tim.
Thank you, Columbus CEO, for this award. We really appreciate it, and we're honored to accept this award. I also want to thank all of my fellow CEOs and the community of Columbus. We would not be able to build this company if it were not for the community support. I'd also like to thank all of our employees for their tireless hard work. We would not be where we are as a company without everyone really working hard to build this company. So I greatly appreciate it. The last year has been quite crazy through a pandemic and work from home all the way through to an IPO. It's been a momentous year for us, although an abnormal year, and we really appreciate all of the support to continue to build this company into the future.
Congratulations once again to all of this year's CEO of the Year finalists and winners. A final thank you to our sponsors, Mills, James, and Regionomics for their support in this endeavor. And now we'll hear from our 2020 CEO of the Year winners on what they've learned during this extraordinary year and their hopes for 2021.
Throughout all of the craziness of the year, I was really proud that we were able to really keep our culture intact, that we were able to keep our people employed and happy.
For YWCA Columbus, the most wonderful thing has been the significant investment and interest in our social justice work.
The most wonderful thing for me is just watching resilience in our employees and watching it with our clients. For me personally, watching it with my kids.
The most wonderful thing has really been the time I've got to spend with my family. Movie nights, puzzles, the laughs, just making the best of it. Being able to have that hands-on engagement with my kids to help shape their future has been really exciting for me.
I think the most difficult thing about 2020 for us has just been the level of uncertainty. When we were first hit with a pandemic, we had no idea what that meant for our business.
I worry a lot more about other organizations that have been so heavily impacted by our situation.
Because of us putting new COVID procedures in place, our women spend limited time coming in and out of Dress for Success. And so I miss that connection.
I'm usually somebody that likes to dive in and solve problems and fix things, and just having to really learn that sometimes being curious and being patient and really sitting with the unknown is maybe what's necessary.
One thing I did learn about myself is I actually kind of thrive when things get tough or when things are unknown.
I've learned that I can actually persevere more than I thought.
Everything that I did before this moment, this year, has prepared me to actually lead this year.
How important it is to try to just step into being me, being authentic, really kind of leading with my heart.
Once you have to sit in your house for months on end and you really don't leave, you get to find out how energetic you really are. And so I've learned that I have super high energy.
I think the most surprising thing has just been the amount of challenges that have come in the course of 1 year, and really being pleasantly surprised at the response that I've seen from the community.
Once we got past that initial shock of the freight train, everybody pretty much jumped on board pretty quickly and said, we're going to figure out how to keep going. And we did, and we have, and we still are.
2020 has shown me that I have advocates and friends and people that I didn't know. And it's also shown me that I have this opportunity to share with those who are willing to listen what it can be like for those on the other side and engage more support and get more help.
I hope that we all stay committed to the social justice work and the closing the gaps around the racial inequities.
I want to see housing equity in this community. Equity can be achieved in a lot of ways if we have good places for people to live safely and soundly to raise their families. And there's no reason why we can't accomplish that. This is Columbus. We've got to be able to do this.
I want, as a community, for us to think about who's not in the room and how we advocate and get more benefits for them.
What we need to do now is come back together and really act as one community.
And people reaching out and offering to be of assistance, to help, to lift each other up. I hope that this community continues that, not just in a time of challenge, but as the way forward every year.
My best advice for new CEOs is realizing that it can be such a lonely experience being a leader, is to find peer groups.
The first thing you want to do when you go into a new role is to listen.
Take a deep breath, take a step back, and know that you just don't know everything. You just don't.
Unapologetically just be yourself and trust yourself.
There's going to be lots of people around you telling you lots of different things, lots of doubters, lots of supporters, but at the end of the day, you really need to stay true to who you are.
We have joined together to work through some very challenging times during 2020, and I look forward to the work we're going to do together in the future.